Elden Ring sold over 30 million copies. It won over 300 Game of the Year awards. It became one of the best-selling games of all time. And it did all of this by completely ignoring 20 years of open-world design conventions. No quest markers, no waypoints, no climbing towers to reveal the map, no checklist of busy work. Just you, a massive world, and the freedom to explore it at your own pace. And that terrified the entire industry. When Elden Ring launched in February 2022, it shattered every expectation. FromSoftware had never made an open-world game before. They were known for tight, linear level design. Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro, games built around carefully crafted paths and interconnected shortcuts. So when they announced they were making a massive open-world game with George R.R. Martin, people were skeptical. Could a studio that specialized in claustrophobic dungeons and punishing boss fights actually pull off a sprawling open world? The answer was yes, and they did it by rejecting everything the industry had decided open-world games should be. Let's talk about what open-world design had become by 2022. If you think open world, you probably think Ubisoft, Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, Watch Dogs. The formula is everywhere. You start the game, you're given a massive map covered in fog, you climb a tower, the fog clears. Now your map is filled with icons, collectibles, side quests, enemy camps, fast travel points, your minimap is cluttered with objectives, your HUD is packed with progress bars. The game tells you exactly where to go, what to do, and how long it'll take, and you spend the next 40 to 60 hours checking boxes off a list. This formula worked. For years it worked. These games sold millions of copies. Players spent hundreds of hours clearing maps. But somewhere along the way, it stopped being fun. It became a job. Open-world fatigue set in. Players started complaining. The worlds felt lifeless. The side quests were repetitive. The collectibles were meaningless. Everything blurred together into a sea of icons and busy work. Developers knew this was a problem, but they were terrified to change it. The fear was that if you didn't guide players with waypoints and quest markers, they'd get lost, frustrated, and quit. So the formula persisted, until Elden Ring said no. Hidetaka Miyazaki, the director of Elden Ring, was asked in interviews what inspired the game's open-world design. He mentioned playing classics like Elder Scrolls, The Witcher, and Breath of the Wild, but he was clear. Elden Ring wasn't copying any of them. It was taking what worked and throwing out what didn't. And what didn't work, according to Miyazaki, was treating players like they couldn't think for themselves. In an interview with PlayStation Blog, Miyazaki said the biggest challenge developing Elden Ring was balancing player freedom with structure. How do you give players a massive open world without overwhelming them? How do you let them explore at their own pace without them getting completely lost? The answer was trust. Trust that if you make something worth finding, players will find it. Elden Ring has no quest log, no waypoints, no minimap icons telling you where to go. When you talk to an NPC and they mention a location, the game doesn't mark it on your map. You have to remember it, you have to explore, you have to pay attention. And that sounds frustrating, right? How are you supposed to find anything? But here's what happens. You start exploring, you see a castle in the distance. It looks cool. You ride toward it. On the way, you find a cave. You explore the cave. You fight a boss. You get loot. You leave the cave and continue toward the castle. But now you see ruins off to the side. You investigate. You find an NPC. They tell you about a hidden area. You make a mental note. You keep going. Hours pass. You've completely forgotten about the original castle, but you've discovered 10 other things, and every single one of them felt earned. This is what Miyazaki calls a sense of adventure. It's not about following a GPS from point A to point B. It's about wandering, getting distracted, stumbling into something amazing, and feeling like you discovered it yourself. The game does give you guidance. The Sights of Grace, Elden Ring's equivalent of bonfires, have golden beams of light that point vaguely toward the main path. But Miyazaki explicitly said in a Famitsu interview that following only the Grace guidance gives you the bare minimum experience. The game wants you to ignore it. Refusing to follow the guidance is supposed to feel like a choice, and that's the key difference. In most open-world games, deviating from the path feels like you're doing it wrong. In Elden Ring, deviating from the path is the entire point. Let's compare this to the Ubisoft formula. In a Far Cry or Assassin's Creed game, you climb a tower, the map reveals a dozen icons, collectible locations, enemy outposts, side quests. The game has just told you exactly what there is to do in this region and where to find it. There's no mystery, no discovery. You're not exploring, you're following a checklist. Elden Ring removes the towers entirely. Well, technically it has map fragments, but they don't reveal points of interest. They just fill in the geography. You still have to find everything yourself. And because there are no quest markers, you can't just follow a line to the next objective. You have to observe the world. You have to talk to NPCs and remember what they said. You have to explore.
This terrified some developers. After Elden Ring's massive success, a few developers on Twitter criticized the game, saying it succeeded because of bad UX design and horrible controls. They argued that modern game design requires clear UI, waypoints, and accessibility features. And they're not entirely wrong. Accessibility matters. But what they misunderstood is that Elden Ring's design isn't about making things difficult for the sake of difficulty. It's about respecting the player's intelligence. Miyazaki said it himself in multiple interviews. He doesn't want to hold the player's hand. He wants them to feel the importance of freedom. He wants them to explore at their own pace and discover things on their own terms. And players loved it. Elden Ring sold over 13 million copies in the first 3 weeks. It hit 30 million by April 2025. For context, Dark Souls 3, FromSoftware's previous bestseller, took 4 years to reach 10 million. Elden Ring tripled that in 2 weeks. It wasn't just hardcore Souls fans buying it. It was mainstream gamers, people who had never touched a Souls game. Why? Because the open world made it accessible in a way the previous games weren't. If you hit a wall in Dark Souls, you're stuck. You have to beat that boss to progress. In Elden Ring, if you hit a wall, you leave. You explore somewhere else. You come back stronger. The open world gives you options. It gives you agency. But accessibility doesn't mean easy. Elden Ring is still a FromSoftware game. The bosses are brutal. The enemies are unforgiving. Death is constant. But the game is fair. And more importantly, it's designed around player-driven progression. Miyazaki mentioned in an Xbox Wire interview that upgrading your weapon from +3 to +7 won't magically make a boss easy. The game isn't about power creep, it's about skill. You get better by learning patterns, improving your timing, and adapting your strategy. The open world just gives you the freedom to approach challenges in different ways. Let's talk about how the world itself is designed. Most open world games are built horizontally, flat terrain with scattered points of interest. Elden Ring is built vertically. The world is layered. You'll find dungeons underground, towers above ground, castles on cliffs, and entire hidden areas accessible only through obscure paths. Miyazaki said in interviews that the first step in designing the map was deciding where the major bosses would appear. The world was then built around those boss fights. Every region, every dungeon, every landmark exists to support the core gameplay loop of exploration and combat. This is the opposite of how most open-world games are designed, where the world is built first and then filled with activities. And because the world is designed this way, everything you find feels intentional. There's no filler, no copy-pasted content. Every cave has a unique boss. Every catacomb has a unique layout. Every ruin has lore implications. Yes, some dungeons reuse assets, but the encounters and rewards are always different. Compare that to a game like Skyrim, where you'll clear 50 Draugr crypts that all feel the same, or Assassin's Creed, where you'll liberate 20 identical outposts. Elden Ring avoids this by making exploration the reward. You're not clearing dungeons for XP or loot. You're clearing them because you want to see what's inside. The game also respects your time in ways other open-world games don't. There's no forced grinding, no mandatory fetch quests, no padding. If you want to rush the main story, you can beat the game in 20 hours. If you want to explore everything, you can spend 200 hours. Both are valid playstyles, and the game never punishes you for choosing one over the other. This is what Miyazaki meant when he said he wanted players to enjoy the game at their own pace. He's not trying to maximize your playtime, he's trying to maximize your enjoyment. Now let's address the criticism. Some people say Elden Ring's lack of quest markers is frustrating. Some say the obscure NPC quest lines are bad design. And they're not entirely wrong. Missing an NPC interaction can lock you out of entire quest lines. Some quests require you to visit specific locations at specific times with no indication of when or where. For players who don't want to use a wiki, this can be infuriating. But here's the thing, Miyazaki doesn't see that as a flaw. In his interviews, he's made it clear that he wants players to experience Elden Ring with a fresh, open mind. No spoilers, no guides, just exploration and discovery. He knows some players will miss content. He's fine with that, because the alternative is a game that holds your hand through everything, and that defeats the purpose of exploration. The impact of Elden Ring on the industry has been massive. It proved that players don't need their hands held. It proved that mystery and discovery are more engaging than checklists and busywork.
It proved that you can make a massive, accessible open-world game without copying the Ubisoft formula, and it's already influencing other games. Developers are taking notes. The conversation around open-world design has shifted. The question is no longer how do we fill the map with icons. The question is how do we make exploration feel meaningful. Elden Ring isn't perfect. The endgame bosses are overtuned. Some dungeons are tedious. The performance at launch was rough. But what it got so right that it redefined what an open-world game can be. It showed that trust between developer and player creates better experiences than holding the player's hand. It showed that less UI means more immersion. It showed that a world designed around discovery is more engaging than a world designed around completion. Hidetaka Miyazaki said in a GameStop interview that making Elden Ring helped grow and nurture FromSoftware's talent. The team learned how to balance freedom with structure. They learned how to pace an open world. They learned that their design philosophy, the one that made Dark Souls a cult classic, could work at massive scale. And now that they've proven it, the industry has to reckon with the fact that the old formula is broken. Players are tired of checklists. They want adventure. They want discovery. They want to feel like explorers, not employees. Elden Ring sold 30 million copies. It won Game of the Year from hundreds of publications. It's one of the best-selling games of all time, and it did it by ignoring every convention of modern open-world design. That's not just a success story, that's a revolution. What do you think? Did Elden Ring change open-world games forever? Let me know in the comments, and subscribe for more deep dives like this.